is Maureen Connors, and I'm a board director of Fashion Incubator San Francisco. And we're going to be talking to you today about smart retail as an ecosystem. And first of all, congratulations to all the other panelists. I think it's been an incredible afternoon of insights about retail. But there's more, and we have an incredible panel that's going to give you some great insights and some new ways to think about retail and all the elements. First of all, let me ask you, how many here, raise your hands if you are a retailer? Okay, retailer. How many are on the brand side? Okay, how many are, say, with the press or consultants, investment bankers, and any others I missed? Okay, so great, thank you. That helps at least give a perspective of our audience. I'm going to get right into it, and I know you can read the bios of the people, and since it's such a high content group of people we have, I want to be sure there's time to have them cover. So we also know we're close to the end of the day, so we may do some things to switch it up and surprise you. So this is going to be a test for you to see how quickly you can react to disruption in a typical presentation. So anyhow, what I just want to do is give an overview. Obviously, there's a lot going on with, it used to be certainly internet, commerce, mobile, et cetera, but now, as you heard earlier, there's a lot going on in store, and some of our speakers will be talking about that. Voice will be big, and that's a whole new opportunity, and certainly traditional retail is not going to go away. It's going to be different, but it's certainly a key element. And I think what's different is how many things are happening, and part of why we wanted to talk about it is the future is smart, experiential, personalized. Most importantly, it's rapidly changing, and there's unique combinations of tech, and I think that's really one of the major takeaways. If you thought you knew how to sort of manage, analyze it, or etc., you may not. The metrics may change in the future. For those of you who are board directors or on boards, I think it's time to say what is happening, or how do we disclose to people what are the key things they should be looking at in the future. Because it's not just technology, consumer behavior is changing, influencing how people are shopping, what they're doing, and the business models are changing. So I like to say we've never been in such a time where there's so many changes and opportunities. So with that, I'm going to turn it over first to Niall Murphy with EVRYTHNG. Thanks.
Thank you. I can click. Okay, so hi, I'm Niall Murphy from EVRYTHNG. Why am I holding a bag, right? So this is a bag that Rebecca Minkoff, a fashion designer and retailer in New York, just launched last month. And what is it? It's a retail store. This is a smart bag, so you can interact with this bag in the store. You can learn about the products and so on. You can buy stuff through the bag, and after you've bought it, you can use it as a mobile retail environment to buy other products and so forth from Rebecca Minkoff. In fact, it's a portable loyalty program, so it acts as an entry pass to galleries and clubs and so forth. It is a mobile retail experience for the brand. I just thought that's an interesting illustration of how retail has been about the selling of stuff, but the stuff itself is becoming an active component of the retail experience in itself. Just to provide a quick few vignettes, I'm going to leap through a few slides here. What do we actually do? We provide the digital identity for physical products. We connect products to the web so that they can actually talk and transact as digital things. And so you can think of the web of things really as what's being built in the Internet of Things as all physical things become part of the digital ecosystem. And we're in a really important transition point now, because obviously there's been a great deal of talk about the connectivity of stuff, but we're now into a prime time phase. I mean, the last 6 months with Apple switching on NFC and native QR code recognition and so forth within the camera application. This is supported within the Chrome environment as well. Anybody who's from China will be familiar with the ubiquity of WhatsApp, but we have of WeChat. Sorry, we have about 2 billion mobile devices around the world that are now natively interacting with products, which is a fundamental game changer from the perspective of how the transaction in both retail and other environments with physical products can happen. If any of you were at the Shelley Palmer briefing session yesterday morning, you'll have heard from Bob, the CEO of GS1, about what's happening with the digitization of coding on products. So the barcode that we take for granted in the purchase experience is turning from being a passive object to being now an active component of interaction, because it's connecting products to the web as well. So not only can we use the code on a product to purchase something at a point of sale, but consumers can interact with that code on the product. Supply chains can authenticate the products and so on. So as the world's coding turns into a digital trigger for interaction, that is a massive scalar of digital interaction with the product. And so the product itself, as I said earlier, becomes an active component in the retail experience. And let's just make that into a concrete scenario. So here we have a retailer, and this is happening in the real world, whereby I've got a product with an active, intelligent capability that's on its label. What can I do with that? Well, as a consumer, I can go up to the product and I can buy it. I don't need to go to the point of sale. I can use my mobile device and I can interact with the product, learn about that product information, but also purchase the product with a mobile payment experience, turn around and head towards the door. Because the product's connected to the web, we can update the in-store security system so I don't get rugby tackled by the security guard before I try and make it out the front door. And we can also update the inventory system supporting the distribution to that retail outlet, so we know that this particular item has just been sold and that needs to be replaced within that environment. So that's a significant reduction in friction of retail the retail experience in terms of purchase and product information, and an introduction of an incredibly dynamic basis of inventory management. With anybody in the fast retail environment will understand the criticality of that, of providing the right inventory to the right customer at the right time and removing as much friction as possible from the retail experience. This is what smart products are making possible. Another vignette here is what's happening in infrastructure. So these are two tiny little sensors from a partner of ours called GUI that enable smart lighting. Why is that relevant in the retail environment? Well, the lighting infrastructure in a retail environment is no longer just about lighting. In fact, it's a full sensory environment in the retail location, which can obviously measure the movement of people around a retail store. It can also actually track the physical inventory, the products that are sitting on a shelf within a retail environment. And so the location of products within a store, the fact that they've moved and been sold, how many people are looking at them in real time and so forth, can be measured through the lighting infrastructure. This, again, is real-world technology. And lest we think this stuff is only applicable in super developed environments like Manhattan or London, the presence of smartphones in even a little tuk-tuk store in Kenya here is relevant, because smartphone interaction with physical products means that retail inventory information can be connected straight back to the vendors supplying these retail outlets, and consumers can benefit from loyalty points and so forth delivered in mobile phone credits on their mobile devices. Digital interaction of physical stuff is completely transforming retail. Right. Last insight I'd provide here. I mean, why do we want to provide digital identity for things? Well, we want to connect those things into a complete navigation experience. When I founded Everything, one of the questions I was trying to answer was Bruce Sterling's question of why can't I Google my shoes? And so let's look at it in the context of a handbag. But we should be able to stand on a street corner and say, I want to buy this particular product. Where is it? And we should be able to get popping up on our Google map the location of the particular product we want within the particular retail store within a certain walking distance from where we are, right? And that's all about connecting product information into the web and making that a seamless part of the digital navigation environment for the retailer and for the consumer.
Great.
A few vignettes, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Next up.
And now we're going to have Phil Gomes, who's going to give us a little idea about blockchain and some of the strategic implications of that as part of the ecosystem. Thanks, Phil.
All right, thank you.
Great job.
Slides up. There we go. Blockchain, retail, and supply chain, or I'm testing the art of compression here. We're going to call it a rapid series of time-constrained gross oversimplifications on their way to a point or two. When people talk about blockchain, people talk about Bitcoin, that sort of thing. This isn't a talk about how we're going to pay for things with Bitcoin. There's a lot of reasons why that's actually kind of impractical. But we're talking about the ledger that sits under Bitcoin that actually tracks in a way that nobody actually controls who owns what and how and that sort of thing. Turns out that this has implications for retail. So a quick definition for blockchain for the uninitiated: it's an ever-growing distributed list of records, arrived at and assembled by consensus, that is, no one person actually controls it. That data is grouped into blocks, they're chained sequentially, that is to timestamp, and interdependent, so they're linked to the previous blocks. And when you record something to the blockchain, it is therefore immutable. Got that? Awesome. Now, here's why this is important, is ask yourself, what could you do if all the people who matter to your organization could operate from a single, immutable, and survivable version of digital truth? Because frankly, a lot of what we live with day to day involves separate versions of digital truth that people have to reconcile all the time. There's a lot of, and that reconciliation serves to feed a lot of mouths and actually serves to reduce efficiency in any system. What we find is the Edelman Trust Barometer shows us that in terms of who trusts blockchain technology the most, it's very interesting to see that they tend to be your manufacturing centers and your garment centers. This is last year's data. The new data is going to come out in 2 months. I'm sorry I couldn't share it with you right now, but it's very interesting to see that the people who want to trust blockchain technology the most are the ones that tend to be in those manufacturing and garment centers. So what are they saying? They're saying, please trust me because I'm putting my trust in a technology that means you don't have to trust me in order to do business with me. And companies are already doing this. Nobody's actually doing this at scale, but the pilots are far too interesting to ignore because people want to know more about what they're putting in their bodies and what they're buying. So Walmart was able to track a package of mangoes using the traditional process. It took them about a week to figure out what happened to those mangoes. This is a company that really knows supply chain really, really well. Using blockchain technology in conjunction with IBM and that sort of thing, that whole process went down to 2 seconds. Now, as a communicator who has participated in a ton of recalls, that moving from a week to 2 seconds it's really difficult to put a dollar value on that, but it's really, really big. You find this technology is tracking, again, the provenance of objects and products and devices. This is one thing here. Everledger is tracking diamonds. Are they conflict diamonds? Are they not? Luxury items is going to be a big deal. After all, the biggest competitor to Louis Vuitton is fake Louis Vuitton. So there's a lot of need for that. There's another company called Provenance out of the UK that is actually using blockchain technology to certify slavery-free tuna. So from a B2B and ultimately B2C context, when people want to learn more about what they're buying, they're going to know how it was handled and was it conflict-free, which I think is, again, very, very compelling. There's another company called Chronicle that is combining IoT and blockchain technology for everything from luxury goods to pharmaceuticals. Now, sure, you can take the tag off and put it on a knockoff, but a really cool thing happens when you rip off the tag. Number one, it's tamper evidence, so you can see that somebody's trying to mess with you. Number two, though, the antenna is actually in the adhesive, so when you rip off the tag, you actually break the antenna and you can't interrogate the tag anymore. So if we look at blockchain and IoT, again, if we're really interested in what we're buying and putting on our bodies, you can see this here for cotton. In this example, 4 attestations are saying, yes, this is organic cotton. Then you go to the factory and we got 4 attestations, people certifying that, yes, it's been slavery-free. Let's put an RFID tag on that shirt. Then, 2 attestations for that. It's not as critical. Then at the point of sale, we now have a chain of title all the way up to that shirt. And you can always interrogate that record all the way back in order to find out, what happened to this and are you purchasing in a socially responsible way. So this also extends to virtual goods. So it's kind of interesting to think there's 2 things. One, music. So singer Imogen Heap did an experiment where as the song spun, the musicians received payments instantly. Didn't have to go through the cadre of lawyers and accountants and that sort of thing. But also, when we talk about retail, it's expanded to virtual goods. If you're in a virtual world, it's easy to think that you bought that sword of wounding in World of Warcraft or whatever. But if that virtual world goes out of business, you didn't actually own that sword. But through blockchain technology, you can take that sword and actually figure out the digital provenance of it and maybe take it to another virtual world. So I'm going to skip through all of this. I'm just going to say the first company that says, I launched a potato chip flavor on the blockchain loses. Blockchain doesn't conjure truth any more than a blog creates transparency, but I will tell you that a shared version of digital truth is already transformative enough. Trust comes from the openness and numbers of eyeballs and signatures as part of the attestation. And regulators that were formerly skeptical or scared are now starting to see the value because they like auditability and audit trails. So that's it. Thank you.
Great job. Thank you, Phil. Thank you, Phil. Okay, hold on. Next up, we have Kyle Walker from Amazon, who's going to tell you another part of the ecosystem and part of the thing of thinking differently about every single aspect of your business. And Kyle's going to give us some insight about what's happening in Amazon.
Thank you. Thanks for having me here. I apologize in advance if my voice goes out. My voice is clearly showing the signs of being at CES all week since Monday. What I wanted to talk about specifically was the view that we took in terms of creating an ecosystem for brands, specifically direct-to-consumer brands, within our program, Amazon Exclusive. So I'm the head of new business strategy. I also serve on the CTA board, on the retail board. And so there's a lot of thought that I think we tried to put into our program, and I think it's interesting to share that specific context as it relates to an ecosystem. Because in many ways, what we were trying to do was create an ecosystem for direct-to-consumer brands to flourish. You'll see here a couple different opportunities that we've pursued over the last few years related to, celebrity-based brands, high-profile direct-to-consumer brands, and really how people are telling that story in a digital medium. So it's become much more about lifestyle imagery. It's become a lot more about the story, the context, making that connection to a customer that traditionally, 20, 30 years ago happened through see, touch, feel of being in a store, touching that product. And now how do we recreate that experience in a digital environment? Here's a couple examples of things that we personally have done within the program to try and help tell that story to customers. Because I think ecosystem, for this panel is a great word because there's so many services available to small and medium-sized businesses to scale on Amazon. And what we tried to do was create an environment where we were able to serve as an extension of their team to connect them to the right services at the right time to allow their business to scale. I'm sure all of you have seen this before. This was supposedly drawn on a napkin by our CEO, but I think understanding how as a program, we're always seeking to drive this flywheel, both by supporting the sellers, they're providing selection, they're ensuring a great customer experience, and how that brand has changed over time. That was one of the questions we discussed on our first phone call. The basic core of building a brand, I think is the same. Trying to have a successful product, it's all the same. The delivery mechanism for making those connections is significantly different, right? So before, there's certain golden rules, you've got to spend money, you've got to drive awareness, you've got to connect with that customer, you've got to have a great product providing customer service. And I think the delivery mechanism, trying to segment your audience, the way that they communicate, the way that they interact with your brand, I think all of that is incredibly important. And it's happening through shifting mediums. And we were just talking about blockchain. That's something that wasn't really a common concept, 3-5 years ago, and now all of a sudden it's like on the top of everybody's mind. So as everything evolves, that ecosystem becomes a journey, not a destination. And we try and help the folks in our program connect with all of that stuff and rethink and kind of look at their business model to take advantage of all the services and offerings that are available. 3 of the things that we always talk about with a lot of our brands is content, connections, and consistency. So launching a direct-to-consumer brand offers you a lot of advantages. You're the one directly connecting with the customer as opposed to having layers of gatekeepers or people that need to validate your idea. You're essentially taking it directly to the consumer. They're providing that validation through sales, through feedback, through reviews. And how are you connecting with those people in terms of we've worked with a brand specifically that was talking about how their strategy differed across 2 social media platforms. Because in one case, it was a children's toy. In one case, they were trying to excite the children to go ask their parents for the toy. In another case, they were trying to tell the parents what a great value it was and how educationally sound it was. And so they had distinctly different messages in those channels to create those connections that were going to drive their business. And then, you can't overlook consistency when it comes to a direct-to-consumer brand, because it's your message getting directly to that person without intermediaries. Some of the things that we've chosen to focus on over the last 3 years in our program is talking about connecting to services, brand registry, accountability, managing that brand story, finding and experimenting with new ways to tell that story as digital mediums evolve, as our platform evolves. How do we tell that story to connect to customers? Driving traffic, because at the end of the day, sales cures all. So businesses are always concerned about getting eyeballs and driving purchases and driving the right types of customers. Gaining reviews, advertising. But I think what gets lost in translation a lot is the amount of importance that being direct and having that direct communication channel with your end customer, how important that is. Because as you think about getting a product to market, and maybe it's a product that you've worked for 5 years to deliver to customers, you don't always know that that's going to be the destination, right? You're on a brand journey as well. And so how do you take that feedback that's coming directly back to you for generation 2, generation 3 of those products? That team tends to be what, kind of separates the product or the brand from evolving and growing, is being aware of all of those different signals that you're getting through a lot of different mediums. And how this is kind of changing the model, I always found this slide interesting, is, in thinking about how people connect with brands, it's no longer, the opportunity to connect with these mediums allows you to tell a direct story. And that direct story, through everything you read, is becoming more and more important to the end customer, especially as that end customer kind of, along the younger end of that customer. So how are you constantly pushing the envelope to have more robust connections in an environment where that's happening in a digital way? Then I wanted to leave you with this quote from Jeff's shareholder letter, I think 2017. Day 2 is stasis, followed by irrelevance, followed by excruciating, painful decline, followed by death. And that's why it's always day 1. I think one of the things that stuck out to me when I read that quote was, as we think about our program, as we think about evolving the opportunities that are available for marketplace sellers, there was just a press release about 300,000 brands chose to start selling on Amazon Marketplace. In 2017, the amount of small businesses, medium-sized businesses that are able to find this ecosystem to succeed, I think, one of the things those businesses need to continue to evolve, innovate, whether it's product line, whether it's content, testing, strategy. But we're also trying to advocate every day for how do we create a better environment or ecosystem for them to succeed.
Great,
So with that.
thank you. Thanks so much, great job, Kyle. And now we have Suresh from NXP. And go ahead.
Thank you, Maureen.
Thanks.
Thank you, Maureen, and thanks for having me here. First of all, also thanks for staying this late. I know it's day 3, 5 p.m. I appreciate everybody staying here. So I don't have any slides because today's session is about ecosystem play, right? And what was shown by everything, what Amazon is talking about, this is all the ecosystem play. I don't know how many of you in the audience are familiar with who NXP is. Raise of hands. 3 people, yeah. So we are a semiconductor company. We are not a brand like Google or Amazon. We are a $10 billion revenue company with a market cap of over $40 billion. What most of you don't know is the RFID that is applied to garments today, whether there were speakers before from Target, retailers like Target, Macy's, Decathlon, Zara. There's several retailers already using RFID. Almost 10 billion items have been tagged this year. So you're buying a product at a Target store today, and you're not aware that that same product label that you see has an embedded RFID in it, which is allowing retailers to do business in a much better way. So inventory management is a huge thing. We have ecosystem partners like everything, Avery Dennison, Zebras, the Motorola's of the world, who take our silicon, our integrated circuit, put it, attach it to an antenna, and then make a 4-color label that becomes a product that you actually see. That's why you don't hear about who NXP is. The other place, how many of you are using mobile payments in this room? All right, great. So to date, NXP has shipped over 2 billion devices, which is powering over 80% of the mobile payments that the industry is using. It's our chip that is the NFC chip that's inside a phone, a tablet, or a wearable, Garmin Pay, Fitbit Pay that you see. That is also something that NXP provides as the platform, and that enables all the payment that you're seeing. We also provide the silicon that is inside a point-of-sale terminal. Again, an ecosystem partner would be Verifone or Ingenico, who has a point-of-sale terminal at a retail location where you present a bank card, which also has a chip, or you just tap and pay using a mobile phone, right? Again, we work very closely with partners who are in this space to make sure that our IC, the hardware, with our operating system actually works very seamlessly with the operating system, so you can just tap and pay, right? Another area, there was a lot of discussion about, so this is all in-store, right? Inventory management, payments, brand protection. So NFC has become a big discussion item off late, especially after iOS 11 opened up. So Apple has been using NFC. Payments have been happening for a few years now, but it's only with the release of iOS 11 that you're able to now use the phone to actually tap to an NFC tag that is on a garment or the purse or a high brand value item, so you can now, the consumer can directly connect to the brand owner. There are products like, so Nike has launched jerseys, which have an embedded embedded NFC tag in it. Adidas has launched different models of shoes which have embedded NFC in it. Sonicare, the toothbrush, Philips and Sonicare, the toothbrush manufacturer, is embedding NFC into their toothbrush head. So when you need to reorder a toothbrush, you want to get a new head, you just tap on it with your NFC-enabled phone, and it'll redirect you, and you can go up and purchase it directly. So you don't need to remember what the model number is. You don't need to go input that and go and do a search and try to buy the right product. The additional new thing that is happening in retail beyond all this is all the vision stuff. I mean, we were talking, the earlier panel was also discussing that. So the artificial intelligence, the machine learning part of things, because there's processing on the edge that is allowing retailers to now react much better and knowing what the consumer wants and customize by using facial recognition, knowing a loyal customer, so you don't need to really present your loyalty card. You're already known when you walk into a Neiman Marcus as to who you are. You're greeted by your name and you get the quality of service that you deserve, right? So this is happening, again, because of technology that's on the edge. The product may be a vision-based system or an edge device, a computing edge device that's using our platform to power that. So going to in-house, right? What happens inside the house? So Amazon, Alexa, right? We were talking about voice earlier today. So Hey Google and Alexa is built on an NXP platform. It is our silicon that is the platform based on which all the algorithms are being written, and the software stack that is sitting on top is by Amazon or by Google. So just wanted to give you a few examples of how deep technologies and the ecosystem partners that we have to work with to enable and make sure that a retail experience for a consumer or for a brand owner is enriched because of technology. And you'll see the store of the future where Amazon Go, for example, it's not going to be many years from now that you will be actually able to walk out of the store. Of course, you will have to opt in. You will need to, the retailer would need to know who you are. So you can then pick your items as you walk through the store. Whatever items are in your basket will get recognized, and the retailer knows who you are, and you can just walk out without actually going to a point-of-sale terminal. And that's going to happen very soon. And again, it's the fundamental technology that sits is the hardware, right? And then there's a lot of software, a lot of logic, a lot of algorithms that have to go on top of it. And as these devices are connected, the other message that I wanted to say is the security aspect that everybody was talking about. So we've been in the business of security for a very long time, and as I mentioned with the mobile payment space, the hardware that we were shipping, we call it the NFC chip and the secure element, right? It is the security in that chip that is allowing you to store your card in the wallet and not have to worry about it being hacked. Same thing goes into every other device that is on a connected device that's on the network. So security is paramount in any of these applications to make a seamless world happen in retail. I'm open to questions from this. Thank you.
Great job, Suresh. I want to thank the panelists. I know we're running late, and I want to make sure the next speaker gets up. The tough question I was going to ask them is, since it's such high value-added quantity, is, what's their vision of retail? Forget the companies they work for, because I think these people have an incredible amount of information and vision and ideas about competing in the future. But we are out of time, but some of them have meetings to go to, but they're going to try to be available if they're not at another meeting. So please make sure you introduce yourself if they're willing to be here. And we thank everyone today. We really appreciate the opportunity to share some insights with you about the ecosystem. Thanks, Laura.
Thank you. I'm sad that we're 10 minutes out of time.
Yep.
Do you want to, you guys up for like one question before we go into the last 15-minute slot? Yeah?
Great.
Come on.
Great. Okay.
Quick. Make it quick.
Quick. Okay, Laura, we can double time. So you may have a tough question. Okay, these people are rock stars. So I really, put on a hat. The Fashion Incubator San Francisco is funded by Macy's. And so the question is, obviously, retail is changing dramatically. So I'm going to start with Suresh, since he was the last one, in terms of, putting on your hat as the next CEO. All of you are the next potential CEOs. What do you see in vision of retail in the next 3 to 5 years? Laura, is that fair?
Yeah, it's a big one.
Yeah,
Okay.
so the way I see it, I think, the retail stores sold whatever brand owners made, right? I mean, there were designers making stuff, putting it on the shelf, and people got a variety of things to buy from. I think the future of retail is the consumer is going to say what and how the product needs to look like, right? So whether it's a purse or a car, I mean, you can see today, you can go online and design your own shoes, right? So it's not going to be a product that is pre-designed for a consumer. The consumer might like a different color. So whether it's cars, shoes, or your shirt, it's going to be that level of customization that you're going to see more and more, and that's what's going to make it happen.
Great. Kyle?
I mean, there's a lot of things I agree with that you just said. I think I would add that I think what's interesting to me is watching how throughout all the changes of how we tell those stories, how brands tell the story, right? Through different mediums. If you had told me that, instead of seeing and touching and feeling a product, that maybe I would make a connection with a brand through a post in social media, or seeing somebody that I respected become an influencer for a purchase decision, or anything like that. I think some of those things I would have said were unrealistic, 5-10 years ago, and now become kind of consistent. So I love thinking about how all of those pieces come together to tell one coherent story across what has ended up being more connection points at the right place, the right time, the way the customer wants to shop.
Exactly.
And I think watching that evolution is fascinating, and how people tackle and what the best practices are. And that evolution continues to be fascinating and will be for the foreseeable future.
Okay. Phil?
Well, I'm going to look at everything as a communications issue, right? And what strikes me is that, at retail, people are going to continue to demand to know more about what they're buying, right? And one thing that happens when somebody gets more data, the only thing you can reliably count on is that person's going to demand more data. And I think that as all of this progresses, considering all the technologies we talked about today, I mean, from blockchain to IoT to mapping, that sort of thing, is that people are going to want to know. I mean, not only in terms of the journey a product took, they're going to want to know that story. They're going to want to know the provenance of those products, and are there enough attestations about, say, the organicness of the cotton, or the fact that the tuna is slavery-free, such that the reasonably cynical consumer can look at that and say, okay, I buy that, right? I can now confidently shop and believe that it has enough attestations that this thing that I'm buying comports to my values and that sort of thing. So,
Niall?
So I think that there are really three words I could summarize it. So omnipresence of retail. We think of a retail experience as a place I have to go to get something. I think what we're going to see is that move into an environment where I can engage retail anywhere at any time. If I want to buy this thing, why can't I ask it to buy it right now? If I like the pair of jeans that Kyle's wearing, why can't I ask that for those right now? So that's an omnipresence. I think authenticity is critical. I think the consumer wants to understand what they're buying, and then experience, right? This is, I need to really not just understand its authenticity, but I need to understand its context and what it delivers for me. If we can get that into an omnipresent context of the presence of retail, then that's a compelling future.
Great. Thank you, Laura. Thank you.